grand finale to the selected letters of Emily Dickinson, the last letter or two. Uh, 1042, the letter 1042 from Selected Letters, Spring, 1886, to Thomas Wentworth Higginson. Quote, Mars, the sacred loneliness, what analogy. Quote, from Mount Zion below to Mount Zion above, said President Humphrey of her father. Gabriel's oration would adorn his child. When she came the last time, she had in her hand, as I entered, the Choir Invisible. Remember we read Choir Invisible? Which was the poet? Was it Browning? I think it was. It couldn't have been Brunta. I think it was Browning, Robert Browning. Superb, she said as she shut the book, stooping to receive me. But fever.
I like that one better actually, the
Choir Invisible? Yeah, I told you I like Browning. Superb, she said as she shut the book, stooping to receive me, but fervor suffocates
better
me.
than the one we read today.
We read what? The Ride Together? Thank you for the sonnet. I have laid it at her loved feet. Quote, poem quote, not knowing when herself may come, I open every door, or has she feathers like a bird, or billows like a shore. Billows. The poem says, not knowing when herself may come, I open every door, or has she feathers like a bird, or billows like a shore.
She's talking about Helen, I guess.
Yeah, I think she would rather have stayed with us, but perhaps she will learn the customs of heaven as the prisoner of Chilion of captivity. You ask, had I read, quote, the notices? I have been very ill, dear friend, since November, bereft of book and thought by the doctor's reproof, but begin to roam in my room now. I think of you with absent affection and the wife and child I never have seen, legend and love in one. She didn't see his wife and child. Audacity of bliss. Audacity of bliss, said Jacob to the angel. Quote, I will not let thee go, except I bless thee. Pugilist and poet, Jacob was correct, your scholar. Sometime during the winter, Higginson had written inquiring whether Edie had read the notices about the death of Alan Jackson. Edie replied as soon as she felt able to do so. The opening of the letter attempts to quote from Higginson's declaration, and no stone with feigned distress mocks the sacred loneliness. Alan Jackson's father, Professor Nathan Fisk, had died while on a trip to the Holy Land on March 30, 1848. The Reverend Herman Humphrey published a tribute to the memory of Reverend Nathan Fisk. And in Jerusalem he died on Mount Zion, and near the tomb of David was he buried. Who at death would not love to go up from Jerusalem below to Jerusalem above? For an earlier reference to George Eliot's. It's George Eliot's The Choir Invisible. So we were wrong, it's not Robert Browning, it's George Eliot.
It should be, because I like it better.
Now you're saying you like George Eliot better than Robert Browning.
Yeah, it was a woman.
George Eliot's Choir Invisible, C letter, Higginson's sonnet to the memory of H.H. He wrote a sonnet, Higginson, to memory of H.H., which is Helen Jackson, was published in the May issue of the Century magazine. The letter suggests that she had received a transcript of Higginson sonnet in advance of publication. Scripture allusion at the end of the first paragraph is to Luke 1:28. Final quotation recalls Jacob, who, wrestling with the angel, said, Genesis 32:26, quote, I will not let thee go except thou bless me. End of letter. And now we're coming to the very end. The last letter is to Louise and Francis Norcross, May 1886. Little cousins called back Emily. Goodness. Who's called back? Is she called back? My goodness, she died. It is a letter written to the Norcrosses in January 1885 that E.D. spoke of having read Hugh Conway's Called Back. That's a book. During the second week in May, she probably came to know that she had but a short time to live. This letter was evidently
So she died
her last.
after May. She lived through March.
On the 13th, she went into a coma. Vinny sent for Austin and for Dr. Bigelow, who remained with her much of the day. She never regained consciousness. She died about 6 in the evening, Saturday, May 15th, 1886. And she writes, little cousins called back Emily. She's called back. She read the book Called Back, and then she said she was called back.
It's like telling them that you always call her back.
And we have, and on March 10th, 2019, finished. We finished the selected letters. Finished letters. David and H, or X, or Greek X.
Sorry, what she wrote again to them?
The very last letter? It's very simple, dear. It says, called back. It says, you always like to read again. Little cousins, called back Emily. That's it.
Just, she wanted them to know that they can call her back.
She's called back by called back. She's dying, huh?
Yeah,
But she's reading
but
Called
she
Back,
will be
dear.
somehow,
She's reading a book called Callback. She always has her double meanings.
Yeah, but she somehow she let them know that they can still call her back, you know. She would be aware of them.
Yeah. We completed reading Emily Dickinson's selected letters, and we've read the Seawall biography, and we read the complete poems. Are you proud of what we completed?
Please.
Was it meaningful?
It was beautiful. I did enjoy it a lot. It was just amazing experience, you know.
Was it last fall that it was October that we went to Amherst, and we got the biography. We read the biography, and finished the poems, and we read the letters. So we've read a lot of things, all out loud.
In 6 months.
6 months, but we had read up to 800 prior to that 6 months.
Yeah, I know.
So it's not that we completed it all. We completed all but 800 poems and the things in that time period, which proves my theory of the creepy crawler, where you plow ahead reading 10 pages a day and you can conquer Mount Olympus. Did we conquer Mount Olympus or Mount Everest, or we called Mount Parnassus in music terms? And we had a crumb. Somewhere in the book was a crumb. Where's the crumb? Somewhere I left a crumb. That's Emily's crumb. You think there is a crumb? Look, there is a crumb. Emily, she said, God gave every bird a loaf of bread and only gave me a crumb. And this is the crumb. There. We found that crumb. We found the crumb.